Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Cultured Nerd Podcast. This week's episode, the long overdue discussion of the new DC Slate update. The other week, James Gunn and Peter Safran sat down with a handful of press, gave an update to a lot of the projects that are currently in the pipeline. And with that, they answered a lot of questions, clarified a lot of stuff, and gave a lot more information on what is happening. So without further ado, let's talk DC. And here we are.
In a slightly reclined position, but ready to receive all of your information. Where did they drop all this news?
So the week before last, they sat down with a handful of press. They called a mini press conference, invited a bunch of people up to the studio, and then basically was like, hey, so here is the update. And then they divvied up the scoops among certain outlets. So some outlets got to talk about other stuff and so on. So there was a lot of stuff going on. Funny enough, so last week when we sat down with Jeremy Adams, we did mention a couple things. One thing that actually came out before all the hullabaloo from DC came out was the first look at Lanterns, which is currently filming. And this single photo shows Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart in middle of nowhere America doing their True Detective incognito detective story. One fun thing that a lot of people noticed was that obviously Hal looks very disheveled. But you see his ring, and DC later posed a close-up of that ring, and fans quickly realized that each of the Green Lantern rings are slightly different, which is exactly what a lot of people wanted, was that this idea that the Lanterns, they inherited their rings from the bearer before them. Each ring has a slight new, unique flair to them. So they're not going to be exact cookie-cutter rings. They're going to be slightly different. The ring that Nathan Fillion wears is a lot more green. The ring that Hal wears is very much almost like a silver metal ring with the lantern symbol etched into it and the core of the ring having the emerald core.
Who chooses, not like production side, is it when it becomes yours, you add the flair onto it, or where does that happen in transition?
Well, it's never actually made clear because in the comics, it was always the ring chose the bearer and each one was what it was. But it could very much be kind of a lightsaber angle where the previous bearer modified it to their own need, or it changed itself to match the user. But it definitely adds a little bit of uniqueness to it because now it kind of may actually explain why each of the Green Lantern costumes are slightly different, because the rings are also slightly different. So later on the line, when they have John, Hal, Kyle, all of these characters, Kyle notoriously had a very different vibe for his Green Lantern symbol and Green Lantern look than Hal and John did. And then Guy's costume was always way different than the rest. It was very much looked like he was wearing a biker jacket with a Green Lantern vibe to it. So it adds this new layer of uniqueness to each of the lanterns, which I think is just really fun.
Was there ever any lantern that used the ring as the weapon? Like, obviously you use it to make constructs, but did anyone have 5 rings as brass knuckles and they were just punching people with rings?
Not that I know of. I mean, the closest thing that you really got was that Guy did a lot of stuff where he would just use the ring to overlay his hand and you would hit people that way. It was just all of them spent a lot of this, Hal created all of his weapons, John created all of his military tech, Kyle, being the artist, did a lot of fantasy weapons, and then because Guy was just raw power, it was just here's a giant green outline of a fist around my fist, and it was a lot of just very poor man's constructs, but it was all just pure raw energy. So they can have a lot of fun with that.
They're making rings, which means people are going to be able to buy these rings. How many rings come in a box set, do you think? We at least have 3 confirmed rings, probably a couple more.
We know at least 3, and from what a lot of the leaks and rumors are saying, this Green Lantern show is going to make reference to a couple more human lanterns, whether or not they have the rings or not. But it could be a lot of fun just to see them say, oh yeah, Kyle is getting his training right now and I'm tasked with training you. And they just do something like that with oh, what? there's already another human lantern or things like that. Like they could just make passing references, which is pretty cool.
I like the idea that, hey, you're a lantern, but before you can like get into like using your ring, you need to like be good at solving mysteries. So they come to Earth to do like a bare bones Jack Reacher story, and then eventually they use their rings.
It's I honestly I love it. There's so much happening behind the scenes that I like the direction they're going. And ironically, people are like, oh, why are they doing this story? Why is Hal so old? This was always the plan. They were always talking about the next time they introduced the lanterns, back even in the Zack Snyder days. Zack Snyder was meant to be using John first because Hal was already old and a member of the Honor Guard. And that was always the plan. Even the Green Lantern Corps movie that they were working on with Jeff Johns was going to be newcomer John Stewart being trained by veteran Hal Jordan. Like they didn't really change much of the idea. They were like, and actually that idea worked. It didn't work at the film. We're going to change some stuff, but the setup works. Let's do that. So they're still doing exactly what they were planning on from the start. So every one of these I don't how do I tactfully say it. The members of the DC fandom who don't want anything other than Zack Snyder's projects to exist, all the ones that are complaining about what James Gunn is doing, this project is exactly what what even Zack Snyder and all them were working on. It's just retooled and put out the same way. So everyone who's saying Zack would have never done this because he would have never made Hal that old, he was. That was actually the plan.
Where's the show filming?
Just like New Mexico or something. Like it's filming out in like the middle of a desert town. It kind of reminds me of the vibe of like that first Thor movie, that like 2-street town in the middle of nowhere.
Sure.
It's going to very much be like something like that. So the chatter behind the scenes is that the project is going to be weird. It's going to be very dark. It's going to be very much a True Detective kind of story where there's going to be a big supernatural element to it. Somehow Sinestro fits in the whole thing.
It's going to be like Men in Black. I mean, you're going to have aliens, right? Like it's going to be weird, but I mean, it's going to be alien weird.
Yeah, there's going to be something weird about it, something dark about it. And it's going to be a lot of wild fun. But before we jump into the rest of the DC stuff, the other couple things I wanted to talk about. I obviously, before we started, I was gushing about the new Gundam movie. I loved it to pieces. Not much else I can say other than just it's going to be a great show. Amazon and MGM dropped the first poster for He-Man.
Showing off that sword again.
Yep, showing off that sword again and showing off the fact that he doesn't look like he's wearing a full body armor suit like Dolph Lundgren was wearing. It just looks like He-Man.
Yeah.
So, and everyone who zoomed in close enough could tell that on the chest, obviously the chest icon is still in the center of his chest, and he's got those belt things hooking onto the chest. If you could see them, they are there. But instead of everything being red, it's kind of a darkened tanned leather, so it works. I really want this He-Man movie to work, and everything about it so far is just making it seem like it is working.
It feels like it's pretty far along.
Yeah, they're filming it pretty well, and it's I think they're releasing stuff now like this because they have to. Because after the photos of Prince Adam, they're like, all right, well, now we understand why studios put out these photos because we can't hide from the paparazzi, so we have to. Dragon Ball Daima finished and in spectacular fashion. The best part about it was they didn't answer a damn thing, and they just ended the show. And the closest thing that we have to any sort of explanation was after he defeated Boo, Goku tried to reach a new form, didn't think he could do it. Obviously, the Namekian gave him that jolt of energy to allow him to hit that form. He hit the form again, but then he told Vegeta, "I didn't think I could do it, so maybe I won't be able to do it again." So that's the only thing that they'll ever say is that they could rationalize. Goku's just like, yeah, thanks to that one Namek guy, I did it twice, and I've never been able to do it again. So
they could even, I thought they were going to say like, oh, this is the Demon Realm version.
This is the Majin Super Saiyan form.
Well, it could have been, right? It could have been like the version that happens only in this universe, right? This is the highest level you could go. But we don't need that. They bought more bugs at the end, and they got a whole bag full of those eyeballs in case we want to do that again. That was
pretty funny where Bulma's like, ew, gross, I don't want to eat those. And the lady's like, but this bug makes your skin supple. And she's like, I will take all of them. So many great Dragon Ball moments in these shows, especially with the last episode where like Bulma says, if you don't stop fighting Vegeta, we're gonna stop having our bath time. And he's like, "You're up, Kakarot. I'm done." That was the most Dragon Ball joke I've ever seen since Dragon Ball. That it was so fun and ridiculous.
I feel like this show has done well. If it hasn't done well, it's streaming on every platform. So obviously there's still a hunger for this. Where does this go in terms of talk for Super? Do we get another movie and then do we get something to bridge that into the next show? Or do you think we wait 2 years for another show?
I think is going to happen is what they were. I mean, from what we understand, was that Akira Toriyama actually planned, created, and did all of the groundwork on this show about 6 years ago. So this was something that was already long done. Concept art, production art, designs, everything was completed by Toriyama 6 years ago. They finally got the ball running. They started recording, releasing, and then they released it in one hit over the course of a year, and they finished the show. He had a plan for obviously doing this, and it definitely sounded like the reason why the Dragon Ball Super manga was on hiatus was to incorporate this stuff into that next presumable final arc of Super. So now that Toriyama is running the show, kind of, I mean, they're still in kind of a rights battle between Toei saying that they're in control, and then the producer of the Dragon Ball franchise saying, no, I'm in control, and then Toru, the guy who Toriyama actually left in charge, saying, no, I'm supposed to be in charge. There's still a bit of a fight on who's actually running the show. So until that finishes, we may not see anything. But if the dust settles and they all get in the room and say, yes, this is what he wanted to do, and they finish Super the way he wanted to, they could just go right into, let's finish the manga and the show and then be done. And then they do another GT or whatever. They could
fuck it up and just do another non-canon with what they have so far and do something with it.
I mean, they've already been doing that with Dragon Ball Heroes. That was that non-canon weird side story show that's like tied into the video game arcade machines in Japan, which all the fun ideas come out of, but nothing actually is canon.
Sure.
But they have that. They can do that if they keep wanting to do that, because it gives fans something to latch onto. But the idea was that the Super Saiyan 4 stuff, the Demon Realm stuff, all of that stuff was meant to be whatever the final arc of Super was going to be. And I want it to go that route. I want them to finish what Toriyama wanted to do with it and then just be done. And if they want to continue making whatever they do after that, that's fine. But at least let Toru finish what Toriyama wanted him to do. Let the guy who planned out his story before he passed away, let that story finish, and then do whatever you want with it.
It's going to have something to do with the celestial beings in the trees, and right, like something to do. And then the fact that and the fact that we didn't see like any of the combination, like they teased a triple combination.
They teased a lot, and they also teased that there's also two other of those three eyes. Like, there's clearly someone's going to find the other two and just be like, guess what? I've got 4 eyes now and I'm a beast, and just runs around like a monster. So they could do a whole lot with that. But they left it in a spot that they could easily do a second season of Daima if they wanted to, but they're not going to, because that was never the plan. The plan was that whatever the second season of Daima was going to be the remainder of Super. So I just want them to finish that. But back onto the DC side of things, James Gunn and Peter Safran had their meeting. They made a bunch of announcements for the bad stuff. Let's go to the bad stuff first.
What do you mean? They announced bad stuff? Did they say, here comes some bad stuff, everybody?
Yes, they did reveal some bad stuff. Number one, the Waller show has made no headway, and they don't know if they can crack it, so it's on the back burner.
Of course it's on the back burner.
Right. The Booster Gold show, they have a pitch. No one wants to sign up as a showrunner, and it's on the back burner because they haven't found someone passionate enough to make it. And then
is that a tough sell? Is Booster Gold just not attractive enough to people?
No, Booster Gold should be very attractive to people because he's such a dumb, silly character that he could be essentially DC's Deadpool if they wanted to. Or rather, DC's Star-Lord.
Yeah, but that's what but they need a Ryan Reynolds. They need someone like that to
They needed Ryan Reynolds. That's what they needed, because he would have been a great Booster Gold, but it didn't work out that way.
No, it did not.
Then they also revealed that the Authority is kind of also in the back burner. which is interesting because the Authority was meant to pick up after Superman because the Engineer is a character in that show. They did say that it's having a harder time coming along. It's not really a big priority right now. And they admitted that the Authority has had some issues with trying to find the right tone because everyone would basically compare it to the boys. And they were like, we can't really have that because it's not that property, but it would be an unfair comparison. So they kind of not sure what they want to do with it because
that's what happens when you do too much Suicide Squad, because now you have these two things where Suicide Squad is still kind of cartoony, like there's still like an over the top element to it. So the moment you ground something, you're going to compare it to the boys.
Yeah. So because of all that, it's kind of on the back burner. It is where it is. And those are the bad things. Now on to the good stuff.
Also, those are all the properties no one's been like banging down the door. Right. Yeah. Okay. So the things that they are telling us are the things that they want. Do we start in Batman, Titans, Clayface, Deathstroke, or what order do you have these in?
Okay, we'll just start going in the order of whatever's on my phone next on the list, right? Okay. All right, so Supergirl is already halfway through production. So it's going to be done very soon. And the studio has been so confident in how good this project has been going. They've actually hired the writer, who is Anna Nogura, who wrote Supergirl with Tom King. She is now also writing Teen Titans. So they officially confirmed Teen Titans is happening. She is segued onto that project right now.
She's going to be on the team. This character is going to go.
No, I mean, the writer, you mean. Like Anna is the writer.
Oh, yeah.
So the writer of Supergirl is writing Titans now.
Yeah, I think Supergirl is going to be on that team for a little bit until she fucks off somewhere.
I don't think she is at all, because from what the long idea was that they were going to include Damian Wayne and a few other of these characters. The Blue Beetle show is still kind of in its early phases, but they're still talking about Blue Beetle being a part of that team. Obviously, they're going to retcon him a little bit and make him not like 25 and more of a Titans age. And then you have this idea that you have the founding members with like Nightwing and all that, and they're going to do kind of like a legacy story in a way. So that's going to be a lot of fun. They officially confirmed without any shadow of a doubt now, Robert Pattinson is not the DCEU, is not the DCU Batman. Flat out. They even said, have we talked about Robert Pattinson? Yes, we have. Have we talked about all of those things? Sure. But any serious, real conversation? Not at all. It is not a thing. And he flat out was like, no, it is. We've said maybe we could do this. And then they're like, no, we shouldn't. And they immediately moved on. They just let it go. So
they would have to change the tone of that next movie. And even if they don't, they would then have to be like, oh, it's another universe. He just happens to look the same as the other one. It's way better if they have another guy and Pattinson can come back and do this if he wants to or not to Batman. Because he does want to come back and do more Batman.
Yeah, so they flat out were like, no, it's not a thing. It's not happening. And they even dashed the other, they said even flat out, like, Grant Gustin is also not going to be the Flash for the DCU. Like, they people have asked about it. They said, could we? And they're like, no. And they moved on. Yeah. So they've had these conversations. They laughed at these conversations, and they moved on. So Pattinson is not it. One surprising news bit that he said, James Gunn revealed that he is actually working very closely with this unnamed writer for Batman the Brave and the Bold, and he is helping craft a story. So in the end of it, he may be listed as co-writer or story by or whatever, but they have a writer. The writing is still happening, and he's working closely to make sure that it works with the DCU, which is.
Do we think that writer is somebody? Do we think it's someone big? Is that why they don't want to say it? Do they think it's an unknown? Is that why they don't want to say it?
Maybe they haven't made it clear, but they confirmed that Andy Muschietti has had nothing to do with the writing process. They said that he is not in the writing process. He's not crafting the story. However, he is still closely attached to the project, and as soon as the script is done, he will be the first one to read it. And if he wants to make the film, he has that pick. If he doesn't, then he can let it go, and then they can find someone else. But as of right now, they confirmed that he is still the guy attached to the project, and the ball will be in his court when the script is done.
Interesting. Okay. Kind of hedging their bets a little bit. I hope he wants to do. I hope they have faith in the script, so I hope that it will be enough to keep this director attached to it.
And it also gives them kind of pause. It also gives them sort of a gap that if they say, "Oh, he didn't want to do it," and they can let him go if they wanted to. They
Yeah,
can say whatever they want at this point. A lot of fans don't think he's going to last because of how the Flash movie turned out, but a lot of fans also tend to forget that he directed the It movies and he proved himself that he's a capable director. And
sure.
he's still currently working very closely with Warner Brothers on Welcome to Derry, and however many seasons that show is going to go for, that may be why he ties up. But um, I don't for a second think that the Flash movie disqualifies him. And I think, if anything, that shows that he is a team player and he allowed the studio to destroy that film
I
and
was
he still
about to
did the best with
say,
it.
which Flash movie? Because I'm sure there is a version that he was probably the most proud of. That's not the version we saw.
Yeah.
We saw whatever the fourth cut of the movie was, third cut of the
He
movie.
effectively filmed 4 or 5 versions of that film. There were
Wild.
so many different takes of so many different sequences, that the fact that we got a coherent movie at the end with all the puzzle pieces that he made is amazing. Because I've heard rumblings of so many different cuts for so many different parts of that story, that some scenes did not, what we got on film as that scene was not what it was shot for.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe that's where he is a capable and competent director. Let's give him a script that we think is dynamite. Let's give him a script that we see where all these pieces fit into our universe.
And I think that's also a big thing about what makes the DC studios so much different, is that they're not moving forward with anything unless they have a script that they like, and then they don't touch it after they do it. They're not rewriting anything. They're not adding stuff. They're not saying, "Oh, like they do with Captain America." They're not going saying, "Wow, that first cut sucked. Take out these characters. Take out these characters. Change this whole act. Add this new character." They're not doing any of that.
Where do you not the quality of the film? Did that film sell well? Will it be fine? Will it be streaming in 2 weeks? How did Captain America do?
So Captain America is not doing the best. I think that's the best way to put it, in the nicest way. All of the ads, all of the everything are saying, "Oh, it's the best movie, the #1 movie of the year," and that's clearly them just trying to push it. The budget was closer to 200 million, and it's only been about 300 million, 340 million right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to break even if it's at this rate. After that first weekend, they did decent money on the opening weekend, and then it had like an 89% drop off on the second weekend, which
means that the audience, right? The audience who saw it is who saw it.
Yeah, the people who saw it are the only ones who wanted to see it.
Yeah.
So that sucks. So we'll see what happens. Now back on the DC stuff. So they announced that. They announced officially the director of Clayface will be the Speak No Evil director, James Watkins. And they even talked a little bit about Mike Flanagan's pitch. And the Clayface movie is going to be a low-budget, hard R DC film. It's a horror film through and through. Budget's typically around 40 to 50 million. Not a lot of money, but actually pretty great for a horror movie. The premise is about what was the exact phrasing they put it? It's about a B movie actor who's trying to stay relevant, who injects himself with an unknown chemical to give him the edge over his competition, and that chemical messes with his body and turns him into a monster.
It's wild that the movie's gonna have a budget of $40 million to make it look like a movie that has a 10,000. Like, you know what I mean? It's gonna look like 70s cheesy shit, and it's gonna have a huge budget, and that's really fun.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. They actually in the meeting that they said we had no plans of making a Clayface movie, and they talked about how they were like, yeah, we listened to the pitch. It was a fun pitch. We said, go for it, make the script. They had no plans on doing anything. And then he said, when the script came out, Flanagan turned in the script, and it's one of the best things that I've read. So I had to say yes to it.
James Gunn also knows horror.
Yeah.
Like, you know, slasher kind of horror and monsters. And if he can recognize that in this script, that's really fun. And it also means that we're getting a breadth of different franchises where, again, let's talk about Captain America. What was it? Kojima's tweet, who's like, I don't know what I'm watching. I'm confusing this movie with Thunderbolts. Like,
Yeah.
The fact that DC is going to have a robust platform that will then probably get some horror fans to maybe watch a Supergirl movie. Maybe.
Yeah. And it's very interesting because this project, it's coming out of left field, but it also fulfills that promise that James Gunn said that we're not going to do the only thing that fits our narrative like Marvel does.
Yeah.
If the script is good and the money sounds right, we're going to make it. And it's going to be part of this bigger universe, whether or not it's required viewing for the bigger story.
Well, I think it means to other creatives in Hollywood, if you've got a good DC story for maybe a B or C character and can do something maybe enclosed with that character or do something that is manageable, there's a chance that those projects may be happening.
It's actually a really cool thing that they're doing that. So separate from the meeting, he did go on the socials and say
Wait, what did he say about What did he say about Deathstroke?
I'll get to that.
Okay.
I'm just talking about Clayface. There was a big rumor that Harry Potter actor Daniel Radcliffe was being eyed for the role of Clayface. He actually went on to Threads and said, no, that's not true. As we confirmed the other day, we're closing a deal with James to direct. Because we don't have a director yet, we haven't even started the casting process. Daniel is great, but we certainly haven't talked to or even considered him. So this is 100% false. The only chatter that I have heard of anything.
Well, they also just said we haven't approached Daniel Radcliffe at all. But if he wants, we're open to it. If he wants to.
No, so the only thing that I've actually heard from behind the scenes is that the only name that James Watkins is actually brought up to the table for Clayface was actually James McAvoy, the actor who he just did a movie with, which was See No Evil. So I personally think that Marvel keeps screwing around with some of these people. So James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, a lot of these people can definitely move to DC and do some wonders. James McAvoy would be an amazing Clayface because he has that range to play 25 different people, and it would be fun to watch. I keep saying that Michael Fassbender would be the best Jason Blood, a.k.a. Etrigan the Demon, that the DC universe could ever do. So they just should do it. Or just anyone he wants. Michael Fassbender is good at everything. Just give him something.
Etrigan the Demon's a pretty good pitch, though, because he gets to do all the fun acting scenes, and then CG will take over, my dude, and we'll get the apple crates out.
It's such a fun concept because you can basically have a period piece where you have this is Knights of the Round Table stuff, Morgan Le Fay, all these things. The Merlin granted Jason Blood the power to defeat the enemies and bound a demon to him, and now he's immortal. And they just show him 99% of the film have set in the Middle Ages, knights, dragons, monsters, and shit. And then the end of the film,
and then have Keanu Reeves, Constantine get together somewhere, and they start doing magic and going on adventures.
So, and then just the end of the movie, have Jason Blood sitting in a Gotham City apartment with all of his relics behind him, and he's like, "I've been around for a few thousand years. What do you want from me?" And have the camera turn and be Bruce Wayne and be like, "I need your help hunting down some magic shit," and then just do that.
Batman, Titans, Clayface, more, Supergirl. What's happening with Deathstroke?
So they did confirm the long-standing rumors that the Deathstroke and Bane project is actually real. Ooh. It is currently in the script phase. The script hasn't been turned in yet, so it's not fully greenlit, but they are moving forward with getting the script completed. He did kind of debunk the idea that it was going to be a Secret Six project and said the script is actually being written by Matthew Orton, the guy who did the Moon Knight series for Marvel, which I think is fantastic. So that just means that he's going to jump into the weird, and we're going to have Bane using Venom. So I'm good for that. He noted that the project is something like a Deathstroke Bane story. And he didn't say it was Secret Six or anything like that. He basically said it's mainly focused on these two. So it's not a team. It's these two together.
And I like that. Let them go on an enclosed adventure, and if they resonate with people, great. You now have two pillars to get 4 more dudes in there. But let this be its own thing.
Yeah. And so what's interesting to me was that all the rumblings of like Josh Brolin, for instance, being courted for Deathstroke, even if the Waller show doesn't pan out, they were courting the actor for Deathstroke because of the Deathstroke Bane project that's potentially in the works, but also the Titans project and Waller. They were planning on using him for 3 projects, so it would make sense if they have one actor locked in and said, hey, by the way, there's 3 other scripts coming for this character. We also might use him in Batman if we wanted to. So they have, there's a lot of projects that could use Bane, Deathstroke.
You lock in someone like that, maybe he even sprinkles into everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just passes in a car or something as well. I mean, it doesn't hurt anything.
Yeah, just like a random cameo where he's like, just like, you have like the Green Lantern ring zipping across the city and it just passes by his window and he's like, another one.
Yeah.
Just like a quick little shot, like where he's there and he sees it. But you have so many projects that Deathstroke can be used in that you're not going to underutilize such a fantastic character.
Right.
So I think it works very well. So aside from all of that, James Gunn also answered the questions about fans saying, what's going on with that picture of you and Zack Snyder from the other day? And he literally just said, the quote is actually the funniest thing. We knew that people would have this view that somehow we've been pitted against each other. It's odd to have someone that you're friendly with in real life be that guy that is positioned as your Lex Luthor, or maybe I'm his Lex Luthor. It's just weird and dynamic. It's just a weird dynamic that's been created between these factions online. And he went on to confirm it was literally just Zack Snyder visiting him at work. He just invited him over to DC Studios to come hang out and chat. And it was not project related. It was just 2 old friends shooting the shit. That's all it was.
Yeah, and let him pick his brain. And listen, when Zack Snyder does direct a movie for the DC universe, of which he will, it'll be a script that's given to him. And it'll be saying, hey, we want you to put all of your buff, muscly dude juice on this movie. And I don't know what that movie is, and I don't think they know what that movie is, but there's Warner Brothers burned a lot of directors in the past, and the fact that he's inviting him to have lunch, that's great.
Yeah,
everyone in Hollywood should be wanting to make these movies.
And the funny thing is, I think people tend to forget that Zack is actually working with Warner Brothers and kind of subsequently DC by making that 300 prequel show. So he's already coming back to the studio for random projects anyways. So, I mean, it would make sense that he's visiting them to talk about the 300 project, and this went to go visit James while he was there. So I think people were reading way too much into it and thinking that some more stuff was happening than actually was happening. And then that was it. But aside from all that, they did say that everything else is moving along very, very nicely. They didn't give any other real updates other than those. They did announce that there is going to be some new animated Elseworlds projects in the mix to kind of help with kids and stuff.
Great.
The My Adventures with Superman did very well. They're working on another season, which is great. They announced a new show called My Adventures with Green Lantern, which very much seems like a spin-off of that show, which is great. Because, I mean, even in the second season, they did already tease a Green Lantern already with the whole Brainiac stuff. He had a lantern that was used as a weapon, so they already kind of opened the door to have another spin-off show.
Cool.
The DC Superpowers IP is being recreated in animated form for kids. That's fun. So a lot of just random everybody is going to be on a show.
Cool.
And then DC Studios is making a Starfire show. So probably to introduce Starfire as a fleshed out character for kids. So when the Titans movie comes out, they know who she is.
Yep.
And then lastly, the other big one was that the DCU Wonder Woman prequel series Paradise Lost is still in the works. They did confirm, he said, Paradise Lost is totally still important and we're working heavily on it. It just seems to be going pretty well right now. The pilot's being written right now. And it sounds like if they've got the pilot going and they've got everything that they need, they can move forward with the showrunner the moment someone taps onto it.
Wow.
So they're very far along on that project, much more than people realized.
Well, if that Rings of Power show on Amazon fails, maybe all of a sudden all the fantasy people come back, but who knows? That will be for another day.
Yeah. And then I guess the only other biddy is, let's see what else they had. Kathleen Kennedy was rumored to have left Star Wars, and then she publicly said, I'm not going anywhere, which everyone got really excited for 2 days, then lost their minds after she said, I'm not leaving.
Will either be publicly the head of Disney goes and fires her and makes a big deal about it, or she will quietly still have a pinky in all of the next 4 projects.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's going to be.
I mean, she did in that interview confirm that the new Sean Levy film that's supposedly being made with Ryan Gosling is indeed post episode 9, set like 5 or 6 years later in that kind of a time frame. And that's it. That's all she really said about that. So it is part of the main canon. It's just a few years later.
Okay.
Cool. So we get to see the aftermath of whatever that turned out to be.
Okay.
We had some surprising deaths since our last episode. I mean, Roberto Orci, the guy who did like Fringe, Transformers, Star Trek, literally back even to Xena, he passed away. He had long-standing health issues and then finally passed away, unfortunately, at a very young age. I think he was only like in his early 50s. Michelle Trachtenberg died of liver failure, which is insane.
Yeah.
She was our age, which is terrifying. And then Gene Hackman passed away, and everything about Gene Hackman's story is confusing and conflicting because you have the
pass away. When did he pass away?
Right. So I mean, you have the coroner report saying that his wife was found passed away in her bathroom with the door locked, and so she was clearly dead for at least a week or two. And then his pacemaker data said that he had a heart attack but died in his living room, and the dog was locked in its kennel and just died of starvation.
Or something like that. Yeah.
So they're like, there's so many weird things going on here that maybe it was just a weird, crazy accident, or maybe something happened and we don't know yet. But the autopsy stuff is still pending, and nobody knows what happened there, which is terrifying. John Lithgow officially accepted the role as Dumbledore.
Said it will be his ending. It'll be his swan song. He's ready for it to be the ending defining thing, which is like, hell yeah. As long as he's mentally committed to 10 years of this, you're in, buddy.
I mean, the actor's 79 right now, and he said, this is going to define me for the last chapter of my life, and I'll be about 87 years old at the wrap party. But I said yes, which confirms that the show was going to be seven seasons maximum, because 1 season per book.
Yeah.
And it's going to go for the next 8 years, and he's fully expecting it to go for the next 8 years.
Game of Thrones.
So that's pretty cool. And then I guess the only other tidbit I had was that Playmates announced at Toy Fair over the weekend, they showed off a bunch of their Power Rangers Reignition toys, which are pretty cool looking. And then inadvertently, they revealed that Hasbro and the IP are re-releasing the entire original show, releasing it. And they're using, I think the phrasing was, we're using AI to clean up the show to help modernize it. So they're not changing anything. They're just fixing the effects and making it look better, to more modernized.
Great. Now do something.
Yeah.
You've now reintroduced the show so everyone knows what it is. Great. Do the sister show. And you know what? Yeah. I know that the point is to have new stuff every year. Fuck it. Give me 15 episodes with the original Zords. They hand over the power coins and they say, you kids got to do this now. And we see them go on adventures. And we see an adventure with CG now. We see them in the Zords climbing a mountain. Like, let's just do other stuff.
My honest opinion, what I think is happening is that we know that Paramount is currently being in the final stages of their merger with Skydance. And the initial plan was that they were going to be rebooting Power Rangers after the merger was over, and they were going to be doing like a full-on reboot style project with the Mighty Morphin era of like the Dinozords and all that stuff. I think that this decision to re-release the show with the help of AI is literally just a cash grab, but also in a way to refamiliarize kids and audiences today with that show that's now over 30 years old. So I think they were like, we're going to do this right now. We're going to push out the merch. We're going to push out the show. It's going to be on Netflix and on YouTube for free on YouTube. So it's going to be everywhere. You can see it for free. Everyone's going to get refamiliar with it. New audiences are going to like it. And then when we reboot the show with a new take on the same characters, people will know who these people are.
Right.
So to me, this seems like a very, very calculated, cheap way of saying reintroduce so we can reboot and not have to explain as much.
Well, Just like we're not going to explain anything else today because that's the end of the episode. If you would like to support us, please head over to the patreon.com/theculturednerd. Thank you to all of our wonderful patrons. Thank you for everything that you do. If you're watching this online, please like, comment, subscribe. All of those things help feed the algorithm to help other people find our show. Question of the day: what do you want to see with Power Rangers? What sort of fun adventures would you want to see as these reboots are going to be happening? Taylor Murphy is your host. I'm Michael Santel. I'm your co-host. Take care of yourselves, drink water, and we'll see all you kids and cats next time.
Bye-bye, everyone. And to answer everyone's questions, we are working on another giveaway, and I will announce it shortly. So please start liking, comment, subscribing, answering those weekly questions, because starting at this episode, we're going to start logging names, logging entries, and put you in the running for the giveaway that I'm going to be announcing soon. So if you want to be in it, start now.
Okay.